Hi, everybody. So, this is part two of the Decoding the Sibyl, the Bible, aka the Sibyl, and some other informations. I wanted to just make a quote uh, from this awesome book, The Sibyls, written by Mama Zulfi. Okay. And in this, there is a quote from one of the Sibylias. I, Sibylla, Phoebo's wise woman, am hidden under a stone monument. I was a speaking virgin, but voiceless. In this maniacal, by the strength of faith, I lie close to the nymphs, Mommy, and to Hermes. I have not lost my sovereignty. So this is basically a reminder to us that as we're decoding and figuring out a lot of things, this is where the sovereignty of the divine feminine and the Sibylias are reborn and brought back into practice and showing their magic. I heard somebody this morning speaking about the Bible and how it was used against what were called African slaves, because many of those slaves were indigenous slaves that were already here. Yes, and there were also African slaves. That this book, which is more than a book, was used to manipulate and punish and harm. And that is true. It was used to manipulate and punish and harm, but it wasn't only towards the indigenous and towards slaves. It had already worked against the woman, the divine feminine. And so there is truth in this, because there are two truths in this book that I've been decoding. One that I've already talked about, which is the Black Madonna, the Black Mother, the Triple Darkness Mother, Ma'at, the laws of Ma'at, which are basically also within the Sibyl Bible. And the person described it as a way to live, to survive in this world, and that is true, but it was much, much more than that. There is healing, medicine, herbal, mental, magic, all within the Sibyl Bible, all within the Kabbalah, which is also another name for Sibylla. Also in Islam, which was based after Fatima, Muhammad's first wife, who was 20 years older than him. And also for the Torah, which is named for one of the Mami Watus. So, also, it is written in the Sibylias, or it is known in the Bible, it says that if any of the words are changed, that there will be punishment to that person who's changed the words. Well, as I've been reading through Acts, I'm seeing that the wording is there, but it's coded. So, with that said, I'm stepping into Acts 2. I left off at Acts 1. I just was given an example. And so, here, the more I read, the more I see that certain words and certain hyphens and how things have been interpreted are just enough to be off and to be misrepresented, but also still containing the words of the Sibylla. Okay, so Acts 2. The Holy Spirit comes at Pentecost. Again, Pentecost is it means 50, and it's also a day of celebration, usually the 50th day in the year. And also at this time, years were different. They went by the moon. Okay. So when the day of the Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. This is all of the Sibyls. This is all the sisterhood and the brother/otherhood of the Sibyls, those who knew all the healings. Okay? Suddenly a sound like a blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues, as the Spirit enabled them. Now, they were staying in Jerusalem, God rearing Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard the sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment, because each one heard them speaking in their own tongue, their own language. So literally, they were speaking all the other languages, even if that wasn't their specific language. Utterly amazed, they asked, "How are not these men who are speaking Galileans?" Now, this is part of where the wording is changed just enough where the words that were in there are still there. However, you don't see it the way it was originally prophetized. So I'm going to reread that in correction. Utterly amazed, they asked, quote unquote, "Are not all these men who?" Now, if you put who in front of men, you have women. So the wording is still there. But those who knew about the truth of the Sibyls were able to conjure and manipulate the wording, the spelling, just enough so that when it was regurgitated back to you after being stolen and manipulated, there was a way to induce the same magic upon the people to control them and have them in a spell of belief that they are not capable of being like Jesus Christ, because according to the Sibyls, all the magic was from the Sibyls. The one who was here to save was already here. She's a woman. She was the women. She was the mother. Okay, so utterly amazed, they asked, "Are not all of these women who are speaking Galileans?" Which is also a name of a Sibyl. "Then how is it that each of us hears them in their own language? Parthian, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and parts of Libya near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretans and Arabs." Cretans are people from Crete. "We hear them declaring the wonders of Goddess or God in our own tongues. Amazed and perplexed, they asked one another, 'What does this mean?' Some, however, made fun of them and said, 'They have had too much wine.'" So the next one. Petra addresses the crowd. Then Petra stood up with the 11, raised her voice and addressed the crowd. "Fellow Eways, and all of you who live in Jerusalem, let me explain this to you. Listen carefully to what I say. These men are not drunk. These men are our men. These are men, women, not drunk, as you suppose. It is only 9 in the morning. No, this is what was spoken by the prophetess Joel. In the days, Goddess says, I will pour out my spirit upon the people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days, and they will prophesy. I will show wonders in the heavens above, and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and the billows of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious day of the Lady. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lady will be saved. Men of Israel, listen to this. Jesus of a Nazareth, woman accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God is among you through them, as you yourselves know. This magical woman was handed over to you by Goddess Set, purpose and for knowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put them to death by nailing them to the cross. They're literally speaking about the goddesses and the Sibyls. But Goddess raised them from the dead, freeing them from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on them. Diana said about them, I saw the Lady always before me, because she is at my right hand. I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, and my tongue rejoices, and my body also will live in hope, because you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the paths of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence. This is to the earth, to the God, to the goddess, to the cosmos. This isn't just to one person. Others, or goddess others, because bara is a way to say goddess. Ba, bra. Goddess others, or brujas. Okay, I can tell you confidently that the patriarch David died and was buried, and his tomb is here to this day. Why would they say that? Why does it actually say David the patriarch? That the patriarch David? Why does it define that? Okay. But, it says but I removed but. She was a prophet and knew that God had promised them on oath that she would place one of this descendants on this throne. And so some of this is added in, because when we talk about thrones and when they were speaking about these kinds of things, they're talking about a place within the mind. There was schooling. People had to be crowned and come to a certain place of mindset before they could move on in their learnings, right? Seeing what was ahead, she spoke of the resurrection, that she was not abandoned to the grave, and she's speaking about the resurrection of the woman who was crippled. Just saying. That she was not abandoned to the grave, but did this body see decay? Nor did this body see decay. Goddess raised this Jesus to life, and we are all witness of the fact. So I'm going to end there, because this is what we're talking about. The prophetesses and the Sibyls were already doing these miracles. They did them all the time. And so as these were being written, it would speak about giving information about bathing, what we call baptism, right? Bathing, cleaning the body, taking care of the body, water, what it can do for you, speaking to water, praying over water, meditating with water, what it can do for the body. These were things that were known. It was what we can call science and spirit brought together. And we did miracles, and we still do miracles. And people, are so conditioned to think that this will never happen, or it's going to be a man coming down from the sky with wings. If it's anything coming down from the sky, it's going to be a woman. So, that is my message from the Sibyls share today. I will be doing more reading and decoding of the Bible. Please, if you're interested, contact me either here, or you can email me at ajm30yahoo.com, or you can visit my website, www.happyandbeyond.com, all in one, Happy and Beyond. All right. Have a beautiful day. Much love. How to be united again. Peace and love.